a roll, guys.
You should see me on full caffeine. It's crazy.
God.
See, look, this already, the vibe here is really fun. I can tell that everyone's friends.
It's all Marty's fault.
Pretty
It's
much.
It's all
Yeah.
Marty's fault.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Sky, do your intro. Let's go.
Okay, I'm being urged by our editor-in-chief to begin, but
My name's
I like to
Steve.
have fun. So those of you who have been on my 3 questions in 3 minutes know that I enjoy having fun. And even though this is Schneps Media's Politics NY debate, it's really going to be more of like a fun conversation style debate. But yes, we will keep it sort of debate-ish because it will get out of hand because there's a lot of you. But anyway, I'm Sky with Politics NY. And if you haven't been on my 3 questions in 3 minutes, please message me. Let's get you on because it's fun. So Schneps Media, as you know, we are the only media outlet providing a platform for every single candidate running for New York City office to have their voices heard and show their faces and personalities. That's a fact. So today's debate will be like none other that you've experienced because it'll be fast and it'll be fun. So try and keep your answers short and sweet because there's a lot of you. Hi, Ray. So I have with me our editor-in-chief, Steve Witt. He's the editor-in-chief of Politics NY. And today, Steve and I, we met for the first time today. So we've been working together for the last couple of months, but we came down to the Schneps Media headquarters where we both are right now in separate rooms. So I don't know why my internet wasn't working and his internet was working because we're here together. But we met here in Brooklyn today at the Schneps Media headquarters. So that was like a really fun, weird thing because we've had this online relationship and then we got to meet in person. But anyway, this forum is recorded. We have a website, politicsny.com. There's a whole page about our debates, politicsny.com/debates. So you can see the upcoming debates, the previous debates, and you can binge watch the videos and the debates. So anyway,
So
District 7.
let's go because
Yes, District 7, here we go. It's Northern Manhattan. As everyone knows, I'm just telling everyone, welcome our audience who is watching. It's Northern Manhattan. It includes Manhattan Valley, Manhattanville, Morningside Heights, Hamilton Heights. So I'd like to just begin. Let's go in alphabetical order by last name. Give us your quick elevator pitch covering your background and your experience. Who are you? So let's go with Shaun first.
and I'm the timekeeper and I'm doing it by the clock. So you'll see me look after a minute. We cut it. All right.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm Shaun Abreu. I'm running for Council District 7. This is my home, made up of working class families just like my own. I'm fighting for home. This is the place I've known my entire life. I am a proud son of immigrants from Dominican Republic, born and raised in the district, attended elementary school, middle school, and college in the district. I went from being evicted as a child to becoming a tenants' rights attorney to help keep families in their homes. I was held back in the 4th grade for failing the state exam and graduated from Columbia University because of investments in after-school programs. I know what it's like to invest in programs that make a difference for our kids. I serve on the board of the Double Discovery Center at Columbia University, and I want to make sure that we're creating conditions of success for all of us from a housing security standpoint, but also making sure kids have access to quality education. So in City Council, it'll be an honor to fight on these issues and to serve our neighbors.
Thank you. Let's hear from Marti next.
Thank you so much for hosting tonight. Always good to see fellow candidates. I'm Marti Allen-Cummings. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm excited to be the first non-binary candidate in New York City Council history. I'm a drag artist and a gig worker, so I know firsthand what it's like to work in our small, locally owned businesses, bars and restaurants, gig to gig, paycheck to paycheck, like so many hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. And this pandemic has exacerbated this issue of living paycheck to paycheck, the need for a livable wage, paid sick leave, paid time off, hazard pay, childcare. There's a lot of issues that we have to fight for in this next council with these 2-year terms. And my experience as a drag artist, I believe, has prepared me in a unique way to community build and community organize. It's what led me to Occupy Wall Street over a decade ago, taught me about grassroots community building, working with the Ali Fournet Center for Homeless Queer Youth, where I now serve on the board of directors, working with the RDJ Refugee Shelter and Trinity Place Shelter right here in our district, and the Senior Issues Committee on the community board. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I know I hate cutting people off, but let's just keep answers short and sweet because there's a lot of you and we want to get through a lot. So thank you. Let's hear from Dan.
Thanks, Sky. I'm running for City Council because I believe I have the most experience, energy, and ideas to help our community recover from this pandemic and grow anew. I'm the elected Democratic State Committeeman for the 69th Assembly District, and a lifelong resident of Upper Manhattan, now 50 years. I grew up in the district and now live in the district with my wife and our son, Caleb, who attends local public school. I myself am a New York City public school graduate, and as a public school parent serving on the school PTA, I've seen firsthand the struggles that our school face and why tackling them is so critical. For the last decade, I've worked for an affordable housing not-for-profit, and I've called for 1,000 new units of affordable housing in the district on sites either owned or controlled by New York City. I've also refused to take money from real estate developers, so my perspective is clear. Next year, the entire city government's changing, and the new leadership must hold the police accountable, advocate for structural change to foster racial equity and LGBTQ justice, and protect the most vulnerable among us. Ultimately, I believe that climate change is the biggest threat we face as a city, a country, and a planet. I'm committed to making New York City the standard for responding to global warming. We can't have climate justice without fundamental changes in the way that we operate. Thanks. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dan. Let's hear from Stacy.
Hey, Sky, how are you? It's great to be here today. Again, my name is Stacy Lynch, and most of you know me through my dad, Bill Lynch, the campaign manager for David N. Dinkins. You may also know me through my work in the mayor's office or a former practicing attorney, but I'm also your neighbor. Like my dad, I believe in public service, community, and coalitions. While working in city government for almost a decade, I created amazing programs such as the Race and Equity Task Force to address the inequities magnified during COVID. I also convened hundreds of leaders to create a program to address the stigma of mental health within communities of color. I partnered with the WNBA New York Liberty to create the Junior Liberty League. And I also built exceptional programming like Daughters of the Movement, as well as a community workshop, development workshop, and an Upper Manhattan Public Safety Community Task Force. I did this in hopes of empowering all of our communities across the city. And now I want to bring that same type of dedication to a community that has done so much for me.
Thank you. Lena.
Hi, my name is Lena Melendez, and I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up in the Heights. I've been living here most of my life. And I'm running for city council because I believe that working class folks should have a seat at the table where decisions are being made on the lives that impact our lives every day. Because I want to be a part of getting housing affordability and equity in land use policies. I have been working on that. I've been boots on the ground. I am a housing activist, an organizer, a tenant association machine. I have been fighting to lower our rents, fighting against rezonings, fighting against the inequitable land use policies. We need to change the system, and so that it could work for everybody. And that's what I have been about. I want to be a part of equitable education for all students. We don't want to create an underclass in our public schools. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Sorry.
I know, I hate cutting people off, but that's
We just have a lot.
Look how many candidates. Now we have Louise.
Steve is tough.
Also, so.
Tough.
Yeah, I gotta be. Otherwise.
Yeah,
All right,
so
next, who do we have?
Maria.
You just won't stop talking if you don't cut us off.
Yeah, that's true.
Maria.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Marti Allen-Cummings, and I am a candidate for City Council in District 7, like all of my colleagues here are as well. And I'm running because it's time that working class people finally have at the table in City Hall. Thanks, Luis Tejada, for muting yourself. And it's time that we have change. It's time that we finally have a seat at the table, because for too long, we've been ignored at the state, local, and federal level. And I'm running on a movement to fight for truly affordable housing, fully funded public education, a Green New Deal for our city. And so we can finally have representation at City Hall. I'm an organizer and activist from West Harlem, where I was born and raised. And for too long, I've seen that nothing has been done in my community. For too long, I've seen that we continue to be ignored. And now is a time for change. I've said this from the beginning, and I'm saying it now. The time for change is now, and the time to bring that change is now to City Hall. And we're going to do that together. And I believe that we can make this happen in fighting for affordable housing, fighting for education, fighting for our community. And I think that's around a minute. Thank you all.
Excellent. It is perfect.
Thank you. Now, Corey.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me. I have 12 years of nonprofit government experience, organizing experience. I started out as a daycare provider. Actually, mom was a small business owner, so I have that experience. Then daycare provider, tenant organizer, knocking on doors, making sure people stayed in their homes. Then I worked in the New York State Assembly, constituent services, Democratic Party, started a Democratic Club, and then from there, veterans, and then circled back to City Council. So please check me out at orteganyc.com. Check out my policy. But the great thing is that we have a lot of great people in this room. So supposing I'm not your cup of tea, well, we have people like Stacy, she'll be the first woman of color. We have people like Marti, will be the first non-gender binary council member, right? You have people like Maria, the next generation, literally, right? Embodying the change we want. And then we have people like Dan, who, honest to God, if I lose, I know he's gonna take care of the Black and brown communities the same way we would. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I love all the love. I really love it.
Sounds strategic, doesn't it?
Okay.
We love you, Corey. We love you, Corey.
So now Ray Sanchez, and I know you're long-winded, Ray, because on my 3 questions in 3 minutes, we went like into like 17 minutes and I needed to cut it. So keep it short, please.
I'm Ray Sanchez, and I'm running for City Council in District 7 because after 4 years.
Thanks, Ray. That's your time. Thank you, Ray.
Come on now, Dan, let him have his minute.
Dan.
Let's start again. Come on. We got an hour, guys. We're gonna
Wow,
do it.
Steve.
I'm Ray Sanchez, and I'm running for City Council because after 4 years of Trump and 7 years of de Blasio incompetence, we desperately, and ongoing pandemic, we desperately need experienced, qualified, knowledgeable public servants to lead our city, lead our city for life after COVID. I'm running because you can't legislate in a vacuum. You need council members who know a lot about a lot of different things, who have truly cross-sectional knowledge and experience across different sectors. And I've worked in every sector you can think of over the last 20 years. I've been an adjunct and CUNY. I've worked in banking and finance, housing and government, including 7 years in the office of the Bronx Borough President. As a native Manhattanite who grew up in NYCHA, I want this city to work better for everyone. And I don't talk about the aspirational, I talk about the deliverable. Deliverables and wins I've put up everywhere I've been. When I was in the Governor's Region Economic Development Council, we got a $10 million award for the South Bronx, an application I was the lead author, right?
Thank you, Ray.
My timing was all messed up because Dan threw me off. It's all good. It's all good.
That's true. That's true. You should let him do it again.
Last but not least, let's hear from Luis Tejada. And are you gonna? Yeah, great. Perfect.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you for second time in this debate. So I'm happy to be here today. So I just want to say something about me, but most about the community. I've been in this community since 1985, fighting for justice for small business, for jobs, for tenants' rights. In 2001, I founded the Meet Our Sister Cultural and Community Center, an organization that really fight for to preserve the affordable housing, but most to preserve the community against gentrification. So in 2006, 2007, we were fighting against Columbia expansion plan with the 197C plan. So I along with Tom DeMoore and Nellie Bailey and the Coalition to Preserve the Community. I also be part of the coalition of the language access to provide translation service in Presbyterian Hospital. Also part of the, along as Lena, the North Manhattan is not for sale against gentrification of the rezoning that will happen not only in Washington Heights, but all over the city. I'm a community activist, but also I went to college. I graduated from as electrical engineer. It's okay. That's it.
That's it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Great. We have no time to talk.
So now, you guys, you all listed a whole bunch of issues, but for the first question now, I'd like each person, will go in the same order, alphabetical order by last name, to really pick the number one issue that you think is the biggest issue facing your community in District 7, and then what you would do to fix it. And you have 1 minute.
I'm gonna give you a minute 30 because I'm a nice guy.
Oh, there you go.
God bless you.
Shaun, let's hear.
Well, I think the biggest issue is, housing insecurity in District 7. I think a lot of folks probably agree with that. As I've mentioned before, I went from being evicted as a child to becoming a tenant rights attorney. As an attorney, I've seen firsthand the families that are, being evicted. Folks are really out of work, and so it's affecting their ability to pay rent. I think we need to expand right to counsel for tenants facing eviction. Right now, if you're a family of four making $35,000, $40,000, you're not covered under the law, because only families that are 200% above the federal poverty line are covered. We need to increase that at least to 400% above the federal poverty line. I also think we also need to create deeply affordable housing using the ELA term sheets, extremely low income levels, to really help out low income families. When we talk about affordable housing, is affordable to who? Is always the magic question. And so we got to make sure that we're bringing opportunities for folks all around the city, beginning in Council District 7, but also throughout our city. And so I think that's my biggest, I think that's the biggest issue of, facing our district, among others.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marti.
I mean, yeah, I agree with Shaun. Housing is like he said, the biggest issue facing our district and our city. We've been in a housing crisis long before the pandemic, and the pandemic has exacerbated this issue. We need community-led development. We need development that will be reflective of the needs of the people who live here, not the interests and needs of real estate developers. We need to cap rent. Right now, people are spending way too much of their income. So we need to cap rent at 30% of people's income. We need to make sure that we are expanding the definition of AMI in the community to be reflective of the actual needs of the district. And we need to make sure that we are giving people direct payments and assistance so they are able to support themselves and their families and keep their home. A roof is a right. We need city funded safe havens. We need to be investing in places for our unhoused neighbors. I'm on the street every Wednesday doing outreach at 11 p.m. talking to people who don't feel safe in shelters, who don't have access to long-term sustainable housing. So while we're protecting tenants and keeping them in their homes, strengthening HDFC, fully funding NYCHA, let's also work to help our unhoused neighbors address the issues of why you're experiencing homelessness and put resources and money into job training and placement, education services, mental health care. We have the budget and the means in the city for every single New Yorker to have a place to call home. It is inexcusable that we're not addressing this issue. And that's something I'm committed to.
All right.
Thank you. Dan.
Clearly, affordable housing, as my colleagues have said, and as one of my colleagues I know is going to, in a moment, when Ray Sanchez is going to talk about his work in the affordable housing area, as I, having worked for an affordable housing not-for-profit, trying to create and preserve affordable housing. I've called for 1,000 new units on 4 sites that are either owned or controlled by New York City, so that we have a chance to actually make a real meaningful impact on creating new affordable housing in the district. And then it also means preserving the affordable housing stock that we have, particularly HDFC co-ops, which are low-income home ownership units that are most prevalent in District 7. We have the most of all of the city, and essentially because the city has the most in the country, we arguably have the most HDFC co-ops, limited equity co-ops in the entire world. Preserving those housing units, which are bedrock in supporting families and communities in this neighborhood, middle income, low income families who can afford now to stay here because they own their own units, as well as creating new affordable housing so people who are here can stay. Particularly senior housing is what we need. The largest growing category of affordable housing need is for seniors. And those things and more, also reference was made by Marti about the AMI level. The area median income for New York for one person is about $80,000. So, but really District 7, the AMI for District 7 is closer to $40,000, considerably less. And both of those are inflated, in fact, because we include some very wealthy upstate counties, which raise it by about 10 grand. So we should revisit what the AMI is and also focus on the community need itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy.
Thanks, Sky. I was on mute. So I agree with my colleagues, but I just want to frame it differently. I think we need to focus on economic development within our district, which includes housing and small businesses, right? Again, I echo what most of my colleagues say, and I believe we need to really expand rent stabilization across the city. Again, adjust the AMI for low-income housing to ensure that it works. Monitoring landlords and tenant screening companies, hire I want to do within my office is really hire a liaison to address all housing issues, complaints, and affordable housing issues. And then the flip side to that is just addressing what's happening with small businesses within our district. We really need to invest in small businesses. I walk up and down the district and I see commercial spaces vacant and empty. Every day, a small business owner is either closing their business or laying off their workforce. And empty storefronts and retail spaces generally is a signal that the quality of life within that community is on the decline. So we really need to support small businesses, provide them with the funding and the resources that they need, whether it's tax incentives for landlords, or funding small businesses that want to operate within our district, and help with PPE and the application process, right? So thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
Oh, okay. So the first thing I would try to do is put a moratorium on these rezonings. We need to stop the default to using developers, because when you use developers, that includes money and people get bought off. All right, let's be real. Then what we need to do is fully fund NYCHA. We need to identify city-owned land to develop community-led ownership. We need to get our homeless people off the street. We have 66,000 homeless people. We have more compassion for a dog and a cat that you find on the street than a human being. There's no reason why we should have 66,000 homeless people on the street, and there are empty luxury apartments throughout the city. We don't need to open up any more shelters. We need permanent housing, a housing first program. That's what we need in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria.
Yeah, so I'm going to echo a lot of what has been said. I also think that one of the biggest issues we're facing in this community is housing. We're facing a housing crisis, not just in District 7, but across the city. And we need to make sure that we have truly affordable housing. That means making sure that we're fighting against real estate, making sure we're fighting against corporate interests like Columbia University. We need to make sure that we're not overdeveloping in our communities and we're not upzoning in our communities, a cycle that has happened in communities of color. We need to make sure that we have truly affordable housing and housing that reflects what we need in our district. And that means, like has been said, making sure that we have a more holistic view of area median income and affordability levels. We also need to make sure that we're dismantling systems in place right now, like mandatory inclusionary housing program that incentivizes private developers instead of actually supporting tenants. And to that point, we also need to expand the right to counsel, like Shaun said. We need to make sure that we're providing tenants the resources to be the voice of their community, to be the leaders of their communities, because for too long, people in power have taken advantage of tenants. And now it's time for them to have a dignified home because housing is a right.
Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Corey.
Writing down notes. So I'm definitely signing on to the 1,000 deeply affordable housing pledge that Dan has put forth. So I'm signing on to that. I'm sure everyone else is going to sign on after this. I also believe in enforcing agency oversight, not even oversight, the enforcement of, why am I losing my word here?
Interagency?
No. Basically, housing enforcement, making sure that we have heat and hot water, making sure that our repairs are made. So I don't disagree with everything that's been said before, but I do say that the flip side to that is maintaining and treating people as human, right? In order to do that, you have to have certain basic necessities, certain basic services met. For communities of color, like a lot of us live in, that's not really there. To have basic necessities like that, you would almost call it luxury. Shaun knows what I'm talking about. So we have to beef up an enforcement to make sure that we have those services. Let me see what else. And I would go a step further and not just say we need to expand universal right to counsel. it's going to expand right to counsel, but expand it universally on every level. Because if you have a right to counsel, if you have representation, the chances of you taking a misstep is much lower. You not only get to stay in your home, but you might also stay out of prison.
Thank you, Corey.
Ray.
Thank you. Thank you. The number one challenge facing this district is same as facing the city, and it's the opportunity of the pandemic, which is how we use space. Our largest employers, whether it's JP Morgan Chase or others, have already made it very clear they're going to reduce their footprint. So we have to really be mindful and smart about how we reuse space, how we activate dormant space. How do we create a domino effect so that once we activate dormant space and move things into it, and how you prioritize that, one of my biggest priorities is class size, right? Because you can't reduce class size if you don't expand number of seats in the system, right? How we expand and convert excess office space to affordable, supportive housing as well as schools creates the opportunity we're all looking for. Whether it's the corridor along 135th that Gail Brewer used in her downtown revitalization award application that highlights all kinds of parcels right behind the Columbia expansion on 130th and the West Side Highway. We have to fundamentally get smarter about how we use space, because if we don't, and if talent doesn't want to be here because they don't believe in the schools, because we haven't fixed the schools, talent will leave. And if talent doesn't want to be here, employers don't want to be here. And if you don't have this holistic view of making this a place where people want to be, there is no economic recovery and there's no future for the city of New York. Consequently, it comes back to space and how do you use space intelligently in creative ways so that we don't have a development policy that's catered around retail, which has been on the decline for over a decade. So that's my minute plus. Thank you.
Nice. Next, Luis.
Well, I said before, I've been here in this community fighting for tenant rights for the last 30 years. So everybody know that this is a crisis that affects everybody, not only the low income people, but everybody. It's because we're losing affordable housing. Only in Hamilton Heights, we lost over 7,000 units between 2011 and 2017 because we had a responsible politician that they don't allocate money to represent tenants in housing court. They didn't have any legal service there. So I'm telling you this because I've been fighting for these tenants, organizing tenants, more than 200 tenant associations in the neighborhood since 2001. So also we have another crisis, the crisis of small business and jobs. And we know that most business in the city of New York belong to immigrant families. So we have the opportunity to rebuild the American dream for immigrant families. So who is responsible for that crisis? It's not me, because I've been working, maybe none of you, but at least we know that some irresponsible elected official taking money from landlord, they let the landlord do whatever they want. It's a free trade, people that can make a business, but who's responsible to take care of our community? So it's the elected official. We know that those elected officials that represent us for the last 20 years, they have done nothing for our community. They have done nothing for our poor family. They have done nothing to preserve the jobs and small business. If we're losing the small business, we're gonna create another crisis, because the people are losing the jobs. When you lose the job, you don't have money to pay rent. So the most important right now in our community is to preserve small business and jobs and to continue fighting for affordable housing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lena, you had a chance you gave your view on that, right? I must have missed. There's a follow-up question from me. As a reporter, I've done a lot of stories on the third-party transfer program, and a lot of HDFC owners, and this goes to you, Dan, have been saying as a reporter that a lot of these nonprofit developers have sold them a false bill of goods, that they had to pay $2,500 down. They didn't get a lot of equity. They can't pass it down, but yet they're responsible for repairs. And now a lot of these same nonprofit developers are coming back in and taking over their building, and they're getting government grants at 0% interest and moving some of these people out to renovate it and actually creating more homeless and more affordability problems. So I'd like you to address as a model if each of you can, about the HDFC program and possibly that model from the 70s where it took over buildings, nonprofit developers and gave them the tenants and they have no equity. So
would you like me to go first, or are we doing this in order? How should we proceed?
Sky, sure, Dan. Start with Dan.
I mean, the TPT program, as it's currently envisioned now, is a disaster. It's destroying equity for a lot of low-income families, many who have been in their homes for decades, and it's the only home that they know. And the TPT program particularly punishes HDFC co-ops that have challenges with uncooperative or even illegally operating subtenants, retailers. Like there's an HDFC co-op in the district which had a laundromat which didn't pay its water bill for over a decade, and then in the middle of the night snuck out and left the HDFC co-op, the residential owners, with the bill. And then the city began to foreclose on the building because the bill was so enormous, and it was, and they were unable. The city was unwilling to negotiate an agreement with the co-op to strike a deal to enable them to pay off that bill or get it reduced, and then to be able to keep their homes. Thankfully, that situation is being resolved favorably for the cooperative unit holders, but not every case that's happened. And you've had a number of really destructive actions where nonprofits take over the units, and they, as you said, get significant capital investment from the city, and then they rent out the units and essentially destroy the equity that the shareholders had. When I'll say I'm in the city council, I would seek to either reform the TPT program so it does what was originally intended, or I would get rid of it entirely because it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing right now.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next, I'm just going in order of what I see, the people. I'm going to go to Stacy because Stacy was like,
I'm ready, Steve.
Ready
this was a big issue while I worked in the mayor's office, and Corey and I worked together on this issue along with Robert Carnegie and Tremaine Wright. The TPT, also known as the third-party transfer program, was a complete failure. When I worked in the mayor's office, I flagged it for my colleagues and the mayor and the commissioner, citing that this was essentially a program taking away home ownership for primarily people of color, to be honest with you. And so we worked with Corey and Rob to figure out how to redesign the program. And when I'm elected city council member, Dan, I will work closely with my other council members, as well as the commissioner of HPD and the sitting mayor, to figure out a way to support co-op owners and HDFCs throughout the city, not just in my district.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Shaun. I'll keep in order. I'm going right.
Well, I would say that when I'm city council member, I will support legislation to allow HDFCs to receive 25 to 30-year repayment agreement for real estate taxes at 1.25 interest rate. I agree with what's been said. The TPT program is very, very flawed. I will support I would support the removal of the program and support legislation that allows HDFCs to be exempt from being foreclosed and transferred to the third-party program. On top of that, we have to eliminate the predatory and abusive high interest rate imposed to HDFC by the New York City Department of Finance and DEP, which in many cases, these interest rates are high as 18% compounded daily or sometimes 750% annually. My goal is to make it as easy as possible for especially communities of color to maintain home ownership in perpetuity into the future and to be able to have a place that they call home. And right now, we're seeing a system in place where folks can no longer call their HDFCs their homes.
Thank you. And I'll go to Maria.
All right. So I agree. The TPT program is nothing good to homeowners and this whole community of homeowners. We need to make sure that we're not creating this path where homeowners are just thinking about being foreclosed. We need to make sure that they're thinking about being successful and continue to own their homes. And like Stacy said, a lot of this, we end up targeting people of color. the system ends up targeting people of color. And, a lot of the times, they're the ones who are hurt the most. And we need to make sure that we're protecting them and allowing them to be the homeowners that they want to be. And that means making sure that we are, moving away from the third-party transfer system. We're instead making sure that we're working with HPD and making sure that we're providing them with the support they need. And at the same time, expanding the HDFC program to give more people an opportunity to own their home. And I really care about the environment and care about being a model for the future. So making sure that we're providing incentives to make sure that these homeowners can make their buildings and their apartments into sustainable places, and they can raise their equity and ultimately help those people of color who really need it.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Ray.
This is a great question, and we were all of us were on the HDFC co-op forum, so we talked about this shit a great deal. I'm coming at it from a slightly different perspective in the sense that it's a lot of it is accountability with HPD, right? When HPD wants to work with you, they'll move mountains and they'll have all sorts of lenders and they have regulatory agreements and all sorts of programs. When they don't want to work for you, it's a royal headache. And when I was in the borough president's office, we wanted to use our Reso A dollars to do a revolving green fund. And I had to literally argue with HPD, and just take objection after objection off the table, just argue it away. And finally, they just came and admitted, well, the entity you want to work with, which is a firm called at the time called Village Power, to facilitate this revolving green fund using Reso A dollars. And again, and when HPD does this, it's already in the form of a regulatory agreement with a zero interest loan on it anyway. So it's really just tweaking the regulatory agreements and doing them in a way that actually works for people, and not in a way that is punitive and punitive. So, but HPD unfortunately is arbitrary in how they move forward and who they want to help. You need leadership at the top, whether it's the mayor or the commissioner, saying no. We are committed to making these buildings work and doing structured finance so that we can do the long-term green retrofits that are needed to make these buildings sustainable, not just environmentally, but financially. Thank you.
All right. And we'll go to Marti.
Well, when I'm a city council member, I look forward to working with all of you to fight for these issues. It's theft. TPT is theft. We're taking people's homes away from them. They're hard-earned homes, So we need a moratorium. We have to have an extension of DAMP. We need to fight against regulatory agreements. And we need to make sure that we're, like so many of my colleagues here have said, home ownership is so important. And this is stealing from our Black and brown communities who have worked so hard to get home ownership. So we need to expand the Home First program and help more people be able to afford home ownership, protect where you're living, and put resources into our HDFC. So like we're talking about here, we can have safe places to live, environmentally safe places to live that are going to your home is your safe space, so we need to invest in this community and these buildings. Thanks.
Thank you, Marti. Let's go to Corey, please.
So Stacy and I worked together when I was at the city council as the director of the Black, Latino, and Asian caucus. We saw the inequities, right? And we believe that after everything you're hearing now, this isn't new, right? We heard this about a year ago, and you're hearing a laundry list of what's wrong with the third-party transfer. I would go a step further. Instead of saying, let's tweak it, let's transform it, we just have to do away with it. So if I'm lucky enough to be the council member, I would sponsor legislation to create a new, and we have that authority as a city council. This isn't something I have to rely on the state on. And basically start anew. We know what the problems are, but start with a model, a community-based model, i.e. changing the tax incentives that HDFCs receive versus those of private condos, which there's a large disparity. And those in the HDFC community can't take advantage of the tax incentives because they're not making enough. They don't have a large enough equity stake. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. And let's Lena. Let's give Lena, and then Louis, your batting cleanup.
I'm with Marti on this one. TPTs are theft. This is this is, when you have private public partnerships, it never works well for people of color. It's not really geared to help people of color. This city and its policies have traditionally and historically been steeped in racism and racist policies, from redlining to urban renewal, planned shrinkage, segregation. So what makes us think that this is going to be, this is not any different, right? I'm not surprised. It's flawed. It doesn't work for the elderly. It doesn't work for people on fixed income. The balloon payment at the end will just get people evicted. So, we can't continue to pretend that this is something that helps people and to keep them in their homes.
Thank you. Luis.
Okay, we know that we have many units or many buildings in District 7 that they are in the program on the HDFC. And we know that this administration, for the Blasio administration, so many city council members are part of the corrupt machine that really are in combination with the HPD, providing those way of this road to private investors to take care of our community and our land and also our house. We have to stop the corruption in City Hall. We have to investigate very deeply what's going on there, because I know 100%, because I see many tenants suffering because they accept the program, the PTP program, and then they were moved to some places and they take 5-6 years. Most of them, they pass away and they never return to the house. We have a unit, for example, at 613 West 141st Street. 15 years, the people were waiting for that to come back to the building, and it's still closed. It's shut down by the city. So many meetings all over the city that they use that program to help the people just to benefit the private investors. So this is ridiculous. This is totally ridiculous. And we should stop that one, to create a different program to bring in the real resource to preserve those affordable houses for people that work very hard for this city.
Steve, can I say one more thing, because I'm really passionate about this topic. Okay. Before I left City Hall, and probably before Corey left the City Council, we were working on both sides to hopefully resolve the TPT program. And I think really the issue is, most of these decisions are being made without including the people that are affected, the key stakeholders. And, I had multiple conversations with the HDFC Coalition, April Tyler, God rest in peace, and her mom, Sylvia Tyler, about how do we really transform, whether it's the TPT program or develop another program to support homeowners so that they have high quality homes, but not penalize them at the same time. So, as council member, I will make it a priority that we include important stakeholders that are affected by our policies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted this debate to be fun, but that question was so serious, and it was a
serious question. It's a very important question.
Steve.
Disneyland.
I'm sorry. I wanted to be fun, but that's an issue I know about, and it affects this district tremendously. It's a major, major issue.
So highest concentration of HDFCs.
So thank you. Can we pivot a little? I want to talk about public safety, if that's okay with everyone. And we can do like one by one, or maybe this can be more of a conversation, because something that comes to mind when I think of your district is that murder of that girl, Tessa Majors, in Morningside Park. And when I heard about that, there are people that I know who are older in the community who say that park has always been a dangerous park for so many years. And I'm wondering, and again, we can make it more of a conversation instead of a one-off, whatever this group feels is appropriate, but to talk about how to clean up that area and what needs to be done to make that a safe park or a safe area, and whether that comes into public safety, police, whatever you want to talk about.
I serve on the board of Friends of Morningside Park, and I want to say actually the park is actually generally quite safe. Many years ago, it was in tougher shape, but particularly in the past 10 or 15 years, it's been in particularly good shape. What it does need, though, is better lighting and cameras. Two things which have been promised to the community by the cops and DOT. The lighting anywhere in a park is controlled by DOT, even though it's within the park. And the cooperation interagency hasn't been particularly smooth. And at one point we had police cameras that were focused on high traffic areas that weren't even turned on. So the tragedy of Tessa Major's murder was awful to call attention to some of the things that needed to be addressed. And some of those things are being improved. But it's probably a larger issue of sort of broader park equity. You have Central Park, which has multi-million-dollar budget and a conservancy and is well provided for. Riverside Park also similarly so. A lot of other parks don't get the attention that they need. And there's a whole plan actually for park equity to provide more money for that. Not to shift away from public safety, but that's something that the park needs additional funding. I'll yield the rest of my time. I keep going though, but other people get a chance.
Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I agree with Dan that there's a big lighting issue there. I served on the board of Friends of Morningside Park too, and when we were there, lighting has always been an issue when we would have events at the park. It would always be an issue. I also support the presence of police officers at Morningside Park. I think that they play a very vital role to our public safety. I'm not saying that's the end all be all. I think public safety also needs to be reimagined as something that is more than just the presence of cops, although I think they play an important role. We have to think about expanding opportunity for our kids and expanding opportunities of housing security. Folks don't have a home, folks don't have a job, folks can't have food, folks don't have school. Bad things are going to happen. And so we have to really focus on the root causes. And I think that that's part of it.
Yeah. I'm gonna I'll jump in, but that's okay. What happened, it's extremely tragic, and so equity within our parks is important, like we've heard. We need to make sure that we're putting resources in our communities. Your zip code shouldn't dictate the resources that are being provided, but the role of the NYPD has to be on violent crime. 70% of our shootings from 2020 are unsolved. So we need to put NYPD's focus on violent crime, and then we need to invest in our community, invest in our schools and our mental health care outreach, addiction outreach, services for people who are on the street. We need to really make sure that our budgets are going into the communities that need them, funding our community-based organizations that are doing harm reduction outreach, community solutions. It's that we hear that famous saying, the communities with the most resources are the ones with the least amount of crime, not the most cops, so start funding communities that need funding, investing in arts education and programs, SYEP, putting money into our after school programs and our schools, and crucial social services that are always the first thing cut in a budget. That's moral bankruptcy and leadership. Why are these programs what's cut in the budget? And then the police gets military riot gear. Have the NYPD focus on violent crime and invest in the community. That's what we need to do.
Well, right. There's no one saying anything about training though, right? Because at the end of the day, whether it was 2011 when we were doing the Bronx Quality of Life Survey in the Borough President's Office, or even now with gun violence on the uptick, but most crime actually down, people still want beat cops. They just don't want to be harassed for wearing a do-rag or a hoodie. So the question becomes, what are we doing to change how we recruit, and what do we do to reward and build up teaching and education and fundamentally changing the culture? Whether it's, we have tuition programs for teachers to get their masters, but what are we doing to facilitate our law enforcement to get, why can't cops get MSWs as well, right? Let's fundamentally rethink and retrain what it means to be a police officer. I taught criminal justice at BMCC. The reality is, so much of our budget isn't actually, what police actually do is outside of what people perceive as normal crime fighting, right? So the question becomes, again, and I say this to someone who lost his dad in the World Trade Center, you got to have funding for counterterrorism. You don't need funding for overtime abuses because cops want to pick up kids at the end of their shift and pad their wages, right? So we talk about demilitarization, but overall, we need a new generation of officers who are trained fundamentally different way, because unfortunately, when people put on the uniform, it completely warps how the decision-making process. And unfortunately,
Well taken.
Okay.
I would like to say something about it. So I see, like, you know, that we are trying to tie the violence, the criminal issue with the poverty and the people of color. I don't think we should treat our community like that. So I think it's that because it's the same way that we are when we're talking about landlords. Landlords are taking advantage of our community. They abuse our elderly. They abuse our tenants. So who's going to put the landlord when they violate the law in jail? So we should work together in order to bring more resources to that community, but also in regards to the park, not only this type of parks, also on Hustle River Park, so on Riverside when I'm jogging at night. So I don't feel safe. So I think is that we could create a surveillance camera everywhere, so the people that can use that platform to walk around, to watch, with the phone, to connect directly to the police department, and also to people who live around the park. Morningside Park is a beautiful place, but also Riverside is a beautiful place. But I don't feel comfortable when I run it after midnight, or raining or not raining. So I think it's that we should find a way to create more safety in the community. Surveillance camera, you can use an application, things like that. And I agree with Martin that we have to bring more resources to our community members, including Columbia University, should giving more opportunity to our talented students. So they don't offer a scholarship to our students. They don't provide the opportunity to our youth. So something like that we have to do for that community.
I'd like to say that there's certain things that make a community safe. And in some communities, putting more police does not necessarily mean making our community safe. Sometimes it means making our community unsafe, especially when the police officers that are put on the street have a certain particular outlook on the demographic of the community that they are policing. What makes our community safe is leveling the playing field, giving opportunities across the board to all children, not creating an underclass in our public schools, siphoning off monies, right? We need to give all our children equal opportunity. We need to create jobs. And for the guys that I speak to every day on the corners, right, that had that failed schooling, right, and are now doing things that they shouldn't be doing because they have no other choice. We need to create opportunities and mentorship programs and reinvest in those social programs that create a leveled playing field.
I'm jumping in.
Lena's on twice. She gets to go again now, right? Right?
No.
There's another Lena on here.
Oh, we got two Lenas.
Yeah. You guys, look, we only have 6 minutes left after all that. We didn't even get through a lot of the questions that we had prepared for you.
What were the fun Sky questions? Let's do one of those.
I know. Come on, Sky.
What's the fun jam, Sky?
It was really.
You're cool too. Don't worry about it.
Listen,
wait, Joe didn't get to respond.
Exactly. Thank you.
And Maria will have to respond.
Yeah, that talk.
Ori, Stacy, and myself.
Maria goes first in the fun question.
You want to listen? Let's do a rapid fire round. What do you say?
No, come on.
All right, you got to respond. 30 seconds.
Maria wants to answer the question. Let her answer the question.
Take it, Stacy.
Really
quickly, 2 seconds.
All right.
If we can be honest, if we can have an honest conversation, we all want accountability for the police and accountability for those that are committing the crimes and invest in our communities, right? I agree with Shaun. We have to really figure out the root of the problem here, right? And, some of the things that I want to advocate for are like removing NYPD from out of our schools. I firmly believe in community and neighborhood policing, which was started by my dad and Mayor David N. Dinkins, dismantling units with a history of misconduct and racial disparities. And again, using city funding to invest in community programs. I had the honor to speak with a very, very good friend of Tessa and her family. And the Majors family, they agreed that investment in the community is the key to solving some of these issues.
Thank you. Maria, real quick, I see you were biting your tongue.
All right, real quick. So I'm going to start by saying, look, we don't need to criminalize people for who they are. We need to invest in our communities. But let's start at the root of the problem. Our politicians have failed us. What are they doing? They're showing up to put up a show, and they waited for someone to die to show up again and put up a show. That's a problem. We need to make sure that we're investing in our communities. And, you know, like Stacy said, investing in our communities. And that means actually providing access to education, making sure that people have a path forward to higher education. And that means CUNY, Columbia University, whatever it is, making sure that people have access to jobs, that we are actually placing resources in communities of color. Because oftentimes there's a cycle of crime. There's a cycle of poverty. There's a cycle in communities of color. We need to make sure that we're investing. We need to make sure that we're investing in our communities. And at the same time, I'm going to say we need to defund the NYPD starting by $1 billion. And I say that because they are targeting our communities, and we need to bring that money and invest in our communities. And I'm a lifelong resident of West Harlem, you know, and I know people are saying, you know, we need more cops and stuff, but I'm telling you as someone who's seen people dead in the streets, that yes, we need to take that money from the police and put it in our communities, because we need that now. And we desperately need to invest in the resources we need in social workers, education, and housing, and making sure that you know, people can thrive.
I got 2 minutes.
Say invest in our community.
And I say something about that. I don't think it's taking money from the police is going to help the community, because we have too many bureaucracy that have big salaries in the city. So you can make it like no $1 billion or $2 billion in salaries. So they spend a lot of money in bureaucracy. So the police, so they are also working people. So we have to create the environment to have a better police relationship with the community. So we have to invest in the community. We have to invest in better school. We have to invest in bringing money from different places. New York City has the most largest budgets in the United States. So we have to relocate the budget to bring in more resources for the police, included for the police, but also for the community. So in order to create a greater environment for that we can.
Corey, did you want to say something really quick?
Not quick. I'm gonna take my time because I can't. So what I would say is, so Tessa Majors shed a light not just on Morningside, but on how many countless Black and brown people in our community, in our district, right? Think about that. This isn't the first, right? But how many people have gone through this? So it's an issue of district-wide, not just one geographical location, but how do you address that, right? So us, as city council members, we have the authority to, one, change how the city operates, right? Change how we see the NYPD and their job description. We can call, as a body, a charter revision, which changes the constitution of the city of New York. If we know that things are not working out and we want to change the NYPD to defund or to make sure this just be cops or to whatever, we have to change the charter. So it's not at the discretion of the mayor and the whims, but actually law moving forward. But again, as a city council body, we also have the authority to pass a budget alongside the mayor. So let's rebalance inequities, right? Like districts like ours, which is 70% of color, and fund it to the tilt. But not just do that for our district, but do it citywide. My vision, as corny as this sounds, I want district like ours and many other districts of communities of color to look like Wakanda. Honestly, God, I want the resources that we should have for the beginning, not starved. If we have those resources, housing, after school programs, summer youth, if we have the resources and not just a little, not just a token, not just in words, not in bullet points, but actual money's directed where you see it in the street, we can solve these issues together. That's what we'll do as city council members.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I don't think we have time for everyone to do a closing statement. So let's just do a rapid fire round. Does that work for everyone? Where you raise your hand if you're in alignment with a certain question, okay? We'll do rapid fire, raise your hand. So the first one is, do you support reducing the police budget? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you vote for a Republican?
Okay.
Would you vote for a DSA candidate?
Some.
Y'all, I was a DSA organizer, so.
Okay, there you go. Okay,
Well, That doesn't count. She can't, that's not right.
I mean,
I like it. It was a good
No,
question.
it shows, you know, where you fall, okay?
You run as Democrat, so you're voting for a Democrat.
Are you vaccinated?
Oh, yeah.
Halfway.
Okay. Are you
You're
Catholic?
waiting for Stacy. Come on now.
Okay,
This week, I get my last shot.
okay. Last
Okay,
question.
and the last one is, do you think Scott Stringer should terminate his mayoral campaign?
Sorry.
Yes or no? No? Yes? No? Okay,
Turn on it.
Come back.
that's our rapid fire round. That was supposed to be a little fun.
That was good. I like it. Very tough.
Okay, but everyone, thank you. Listen, it's hard to do this when there's so many candidates. So thank you for bearing with us and thank you for being part of this on Schneps Media's Politics NY with
Thank
Sky,
you.
Steve. Thank
And I
you.
want to add, it was very
Yeah.
compelling. I found it very, very interesting. And I admire you all for, you know, putting yourselves out there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Were we
Thank
the
you for
best one,
inviting us.
Steve? Is this the best one? Is this the
What's
best
that?
one? You
Yeah, District 7 is your
Oh,
favorite, right?
Yeah, is this the
Everybody
top? Is this one of the
District
top?
7
Come on,
is
admit
absolutely
it,
your favorite.
admit it, Steve.
Just
admit
to
it.
get that on the
Come on.
record.
Yeah, I love you, Ray.
Yeah, everyone is the best one.
Oh.
You live with it to 7 for.
You love all your children equally.
Lucky
Yeah.
7, baby. Lucky 7.
It's funny because yesterday I did the Upper East Side and it was so different. It was just, you know.
We're clearly more fun. We're the more
Yeah, we're much more fun. Yeah, we need more fun questions. We want to go another half an hour. Fun questions.
All right. Well, we
All
got
right, thank you so much, Sky.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Steve.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.